The sound of rain hitting cardboard boxes filled my small bedroom as I frantically packed whatever I could fit into my worn backpack. Downstairs, my parents' voices grew louder, more insistent. "You have 1 hour. 1 hour to get out of this house." My hands trembled as I grabbed essentials. A few changes of clothes, my laptop, the envelope containing my graduation money, $200 I'd saved from relatives' cards. Not much to start a new life, but it was all I had. I'm Olivia Parker, and this is how my family threw me away at 18. The argument that led to my exile wasn't even about anything significant. I told my parents I wanted to take a gap year before college, to work and figure out what I really wanted to do with my life. My father, a third-generation lawyer, exploded. "No daughter of mine is going to waste a year being a nobody," he had shouted, face turning that dangerous shade of purple I'd learned to fear. "You're going to law school just like your sister Jessica did." Ah yes, Jessica. The perfect daughter. 25 years old, already an associate at our father's firm, married to a surgeon and expecting her first child. Every parent's dream. But I wasn't Jessica. "I don't want to be a lawyer," I had said quietly, standing my ground. "I want to explore other options." That's when my mother stepped in, her voice cold and sharp like broken glass. "We've already paid your first semester's tuition at Georgetown Law. You're going." "I never asked you to do that," I replied. "I don't want to waste your money or my time studying something that makes me miserable." Miserable? My father's laugh was bitter. "You want to know what miserable is? Try explaining to our friends that our youngest daughter is throwing away her future to become a... What exactly do you plan to do?" I took a deep breath. "I want to start my own business." The silence that followed was deafening. Then both my parents burst into laughter, the cruel kind that cuts deep into your soul. "A business." My mother wiped tears from her eyes. "You can barely manage your allowance." "I have ideas," I tried to explain. "There's this new platform I've been developing." "Enough." My father slammed his hand on the dining table. "Either you go to law school or you get out. You're 18 now, legally an adult. Make your choice." I stood up slowly, my decision already made. "Then I'll leave." I don't think they expected that. For a moment, shock flashed across their faces. Then my father's expression hardened. "Fine, you have 1 hour. After that, I'm changing the locks." Now, as I stuffed the last of my belongings into my backpack, I could hear my mother on the phone with Jessica. Can you believe her ingratitude? After everything we've done, I picked up the framed photo from my nightstand, the only one where I looked genuinely happy. It was from last summer, me standing proudly next to the computer setup I'd bought with my own money from tutoring kids in math and science. In the background was my whiteboard, covered in flowcharts and code snippets for my project, the project they never bothered to understand. For the past 2 years, I've been developing a platform that would revolutionize how small businesses handle their social media presence. An AI-driven system that could analyze trends, schedule posts, and optimize engagement across multiple platforms. My parents thought I was just playing around on the computer. Thunder cracked outside as I zipped up my backpack. 55 minutes had passed. In the hallway mirror, I caught a glimpse of myself. Pale, scared, but somehow determined. My long brown hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, my green eyes red from crying. "Time's almost up." My father's voice boomed from downstairs. I took one last look around my room. 18 years of memories, awards from science fairs they never attended, certificates from coding competitions they dismissed as hobby achievements. The desk where I'd spent countless nights working on my platform while they thought I was wasting time online. The walk downstairs felt like a march to execution. My parents stood by the front door, arms crossed, faces set in identical masks of disapproval. "I hope you realize what you're throwing away," my mother said, her voice trembling slightly. Was it anger or concern? I couldn't tell anymore. "Your sister would never," my father began. I met Jessica. I cut him off. "I never will be." He grabbed my arm as I reached for the door handle. "Once you walk out that door, don't expect to come back. No crawling home when you fail." I met his eyes. "I won't fail." The rain was pouring now as I stepped onto the porch. My mother made a small sound, like she wanted to say something, but my father closed the door firmly behind me. The lock clicked with devastating finality. I stood there for a moment, rain soaking through my clothes, backpack heavy on my shoulders. $200, a laptop, and an unfinished project. Not much to start a new life with. But I had something else, something my parents never understood. A burning determination to prove them wrong. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. Mom and Dad just told me, "You're making a huge mistake. Come to my house, we'll talk sense into you." I turned off my phone. The local youth hostel was my first stop, $15 a night, but at least it was dry. As I sat on the narrow bed that evening, I opened my laptop and pulled up my project files. The code I'd been working on for 2 years stared back at me, full of potential. Social Sync. I whispered the name I'd chosen. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, then began to type. If I was going to be homeless, I might as well use the time to finish what I'd started. 3 days later, I found a job at a local coffee shop. The manager, Maria, took one look at my soaked resume and hired me on the spot. Maybe she saw something in my eyes, or maybe she just needed someone desperate enough to work the 4 a.m. shift. "You can crash on my couch for a while," she offered after hearing my story. "Just until you get on your feet." I almost cried with relief. The next few months fell into a grueling routine. Up at 3:30 a.m. for the morning shift, coding during breaks, more coding after work until my eyes burned. Maria's couch wasn't comfortable, but it was free, and she never complained about the light from my laptop late at night. Every penny I earned went into savings except for what I needed for basic necessities and cloud server costs for testing my platform. No new clothes, no eating out, no social life. My world narrowed to 3 things: work, code, and sleep. Sometimes late at night, I'd see posts on social media about my family's life continuing without me. Jessica's baby shower, my parents' anniversary cruise, holiday gatherings I wasn't invited to. It hurt, but the pain only fueled my determination. 6 months after being kicked out, I launched the beta version of Social Sync. I'd managed to save enough to rent a tiny studio apartment, though apartment was a generous term for what was essentially a converted garage with a bathroom. My first client was Maria. She'd been struggling to maintain social media presence for her coffee shop, so I offered to let her test my platform for free. The results were immediate. Her engagement rates tripled, customer traffic increased, and she actually had time to focus on running her business instead of worrying about Instagram posts. Word spread quickly in our small business community. By month 8, I had 20 paying clients. By month 12, over 100. The project that my parents had dismissed as a waste of time was actually working. 1 year to the day after being kicked out, I received my first acquisition offer, $2 million from a tech startup in Silicon Valley. I turned it down. I knew Social Sync was worth more. I was right. 3 months later, a major tech company offered $10 million. Again, I declined. My platform was growing exponentially, and I wasn't ready to give up control. That's when things really took off. Tech magazines started writing about the mysterious founder of Social Sync. Investment offers poured in. My client list grew to include major brands and celebrities. I hired my first employee, a brilliant developer I'd met in an online coding forum. Then another, and another. We moved from my garage apartment to a real office downtown. 2 years after being thrown out of my childhood home with nothing but a backpack and $200, I was running a company valued at over $50 million. I bought my beach house on my 21st birthday, 3 stories of glass and steel overlooking the Pacific, with a home office where I could watch the sunset while working. The day I moved in, I found an old photo at the bottom of my backpack, the one from my bedroom showing me with my computer setup. I hung it in my new office as a reminder of where I started. My parents, they had no idea. As far as they knew, I had disappeared that rainy night, probably living some miserable existence, regretting my decision not to become a lawyer. Jessica occasionally posted concerned messages on social media about her lost sister, who chose the wrong path. I let them believe what they wanted. I was too busy building my empire to care about their opinions anymore. Then, almost exactly 3 years after they kicked me out, they found me. I was sitting on my deck, laptop open, reviewing acquisition proposals when the security system announced visitors at the gate. Through the camera feed, I saw them, my parents, standing outside my gate in their expensive clothes, looking extremely uncomfortable. My father pressed the intercom button. "We're here to see Olivia Parker. We're her parents. I watched them through the security feed, my heart pounding. 3 years of silence, and now here they were. I knew this day would come eventually, but I hadn't expected it so soon. Her parents? The AI security system responded. Do you have an appointment? An appointment? My mother sputtered. To see our own daughter? I zoomed in on their faces through the camera. They looked older than I remembered, or maybe it was just the California sun highlighting their East Coast pallor. My father straightened his tie, a nervous habit I remembered well. Just tell her we're here. She'll want to see us. Would I? 3 years ago, they'd thrown me out like garbage. Now they were standing at my gate, probably wondering how their failed daughter could afford to live in one of the most expensive neighborhoods in California. I stood up, walked to the edge of my deck, and looked down at them. From this distance, they couldn't see me, but I could see them perfectly. My mother clutching her designer handbag, my father shifting impatiently from foot to foot. The question wasn't whether to let them in. I knew I would. The question was, what did they want? And more importantly, what would they do when they realized exactly how wrong they'd been about their younger daughter? I pressed the intercom button. Let them in. The gates swung open silently, and I watched my parents walk up the winding driveway, their heads turning to take in the manicured gardens and the sleek architecture of my home. By the time they reached the front door, I was already there, waiting. The shock on their faces when they saw me was almost worth 3 years of silence. Gone was the scared teenager in a ponytail. I stood before them in a casual but expensive sundress, my hair styled professionally, exuding the quiet confidence that comes with success. Olivia, my mother's voice trembled. You live here? Yes, I said simply, stepping aside. Come in. They followed me into the house, their designer shoes clicking on the marble floors. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly, waves catching the late afternoon sun. This is, my father cleared his throat, quite a place you have here. Thank you. Would you like something to drink? Water? Coffee? The beans are imported from a small farm in Colombia. Maria, my first employer, sources them specially. They exchanged glances at the mention of my coffee shop days. Did they feel guilty, imagining their daughter serving lattes to make ends meet? Watered is fine, my mother said softly. I led them to the living room, where my laptop still sat open on the glass coffee table, displaying financial projections for the next quarter. My father's eyes lingered on the screen, trying to make sense of the numbers he saw. So, I said, handing them each a glass of water, what brings you here after 3 years? My mother fidgeted with her handbag. We've been trying to find you. Jessica finally tracked you down through a friend who saw you in a tech magazine. Ah, the article in TechCrunch. I should have known it would eventually reach them. The article said you founded SocialSync, my father said, his voice a mix of disbelief and something else. Pride? No, more like regret. That's $1 billion company now. 1.2 billion as of last valuation. I corrected him gently. We're expanding into Asian markets next month. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Billion? But how? Remember that project you thought I was wasting time on? The one I tried to tell you about the night you kicked me out? That was SocialSync in its early stages. Silence filled the room, heavy with unspoken words and regrets. Why did he tell us? My father finally asked. When you started succeeding, why did he let us know? I laughed softly. Would you have believed me? Besides, you made it clear that night. I wasn't welcome back unless I failed. We were wrong, my mother burst out, tears in her eyes. We were so wrong, Olivia. We've regretted it every day since. Have you? I asked, keeping my voice calm. Or do you regret it now that you've seen what I've accomplished? My father stood up abruptly, walking to the window. We've sold the house, he said, his back to me. Your mother and I, we're retiring. We thought. You thought what? My mother jumped in. This place is so big, Olivia. Surely you don't need all this space for yourself. We're your parents. Perhaps we could. I held up my hand, stopping her mid-sentence. Let me get this straight. You kicked me out with $200 and a backpack, ignore me for 3 years, and now you want to retire in my beach house. We're family, my father turned back from the window. Despite everything, we're still your parents. Parents? I stood up, walking to my office. Let me show you something. I returned with the framed photo from my old bedroom, me with my computer set up. I placed it on the coffee table. This was the only thing I took from my old life that wasn't a necessity. Do you know why? Because it reminded me of the moment I realized I could build something meaningful. It was the only photo I had where I looked truly happy and neither of you were in it. My mother picked up the photo, her hands shaking. Your coding setup, the one we thought was just for games. The one that built a billion-dollar company I finished for her. The one you never bothered to understand. We were wrong, my father said again, his voice heavy. We were so focused on what we wanted for you, we couldn't see what you were capable of on your own. I walked to the deck doors, pushing them open to let in the ocean breeze. Do you know what the hardest part was? Not the poverty, not sleeping on Maria's couch, not working before dawn to afford server costs. It was knowing that my own parents had so little faith in me that they'd rather throw me out than let me try to succeed on my own terms. Tears were flowing freely down my mother's face now. My father looked older than I'd ever seen him. My mother wiped her eyes. Is there any way we can make this right? I turned to face them. I don't know, but I do know it won't start with you moving into my house. You can't buy back a relationship with the success you tried to prevent. What about a fresh start? My father suggested. We could. A fresh start requires trust, I cut in. And trust requires understanding. Do you even know what Social Sync does? Have you tried to understand the work I've done? Or did you just see the billion-dollar valuation? They exchanged guilty looks. Of course they hadn't. I sat down again, pulling up the Social Sync platform on my laptop. Let me show you what your daughter built. Not because I need your approval anymore, but because if we're ever going to have a relationship again, you need to see me for who I am, not who you wanted me to be. For the next hour, I walked them through my company, my vision, the technology that was revolutionizing how businesses connect with their customers. My father asked surprisingly thoughtful questions. My mother watched with growing comprehension. This is extraordinary, my father finally said. All this from that project in your bedroom. All this because I believed in myself. I corrected him, even when you didn't. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across my living room, my parents prepared to leave. They had a hotel room downtown. At least they hadn't assumed I'd let them stay. Olivia, my mother paused at the door. Can we see you again? I considered her question carefully. I have a charity gala next month. Social Sync is launching a program to help underprivileged teens learn coding. You're welcome to attend as guests, not as parents looking for a place to retire. They nodded, understanding the distinction. And I added as they turned to leave, if you're serious about wanting to rebuild our relationship, start by understanding what I've built. Download Social Sync. Use it. Learn it. Show me you're interested in who I am, not what I own. After they left, I stood on my deck watching the sunset. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. Just heard Mom and Dad found you. Can't believe my little sister is a tech billionaire. We should do lunch soon. I know some great investors. I deleted the message without responding. Later that night, as I worked in my home office, I received notifications that 2 new Social Sync accounts had been created, one for each of my parents. It was a small step, but maybe, just maybe, it was a start. I picked up the old photo from my bedroom, studying my younger self's smile. We did it. I whispered to that scared but determined teenager. We proved them all wrong. My story spread through the tech community. The teenager who went from homeless to billionaire. The daughter who succeeded despite her family's rejection. I received hundreds of messages from young entrepreneurs facing similar situations. To them, I always say the same thing. Success is the best revenge, but revenge shouldn't be your motivation. Build something because you believe in it. The rest will follow. My parents? They're learning slowly. They attend every charity gala, have become active Social Sync users, and are gradually beginning to understand the daughter they once dismissed. They bought a modest retirement home near their old place. No more hints about moving into my beach house. As for me, I keep that old photo on my desk, next to my latest magazine covers and industry awards. It reminds me of 2 important lessons. First, never let anyone define your worth but you. And second, sometimes being kicked out is just life's way of kicking you forward. The beach house? It's still mine, and yes, the view is still perfect. But now when I watch the sunset from my deck, I don't see it as a symbol of revenge or success. Instead, it reminds me that sometimes the biggest leaps forward start with a single step back. Or in my case, a single step out of my parents' front door, into the rain, with nothing but $200 and a dream they were too blind to see.
I was in advanced thermodynamics when my phone vibrated. Mom's name. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, it vibrated again. And again. By the fourth call, Professor Mitchell paused mid-equation and looked at me. I mouthed sorry and stepped into the hallway. Catherine. Mom's voice had that edge, the one she used when she'd already decided something and expected compliance. I've withdrawn you from school. You need to come home immediately. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Students passed, backpacks heavy with textbooks. Someone laughed about an exam. Normal campus sounds that suddenly felt very far away. What are you talking about? Your brother needs help with his new business. Real family support, not this selfish academic fantasy you're living. I've already submitted the withdrawal forms to the registrar. You're done there. My hand tightened on the phone. You can't withdraw me. I'm 23 years old. I'm listed as your emergency contact. They were very accommodating when I explained you were having a mental health crisis and needed to come home for treatment. Her voice brightened, pleased with her own cleverness. Your father agrees this is best. Brandon's company needs someone to handle the bookkeeping, and frankly, you owe this family after everything we've invested in you. I closed my eyes. Counted to 3. Opened them. I'll call you back. Catherine, don't you dare. I ended the call and walked directly to the administration building. The autumn air was sharp, biting through my sweater. My breath came out in clouds. The Shaw Engineering Building rose to my left. 5 stories of glass and steel, completed 18 months ago. My grandmother's legacy. My responsibility. The registrar's office had that institutional smell, old paper and industrial carpet. The student worker at the desk looked up with practiced customer service exhaustion. I need to speak with someone about withdrawal forms, I said. Someone may have submitted them fraudulently under my name. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Name. Catherine Marie Shaw. She went very still. Then she picked up the phone, pressed a button and spoke quietly. Mrs. Henderson? There's a situation. Catherine Shaw is here. 2 minutes later I was in a private office. Mrs. Henderson, the registrar, had silver hair and reading glasses on a chain. She folded her hands on the desk. Miss Shaw, your mother called an hour ago. Said you were experiencing severe depression and needed immediate withdrawal for psychiatric treatment. She submitted forms through the online portal. She has your login information, apparently. She doesn't have my login information. She can't have my login information. I'm over 18. She has no legal authority to access my academic records or make decisions about my enrollment. Mrs. Henderson nodded slowly. That's what I thought. But she was very insistent and claimed she had medical power of attorney. She doesn't. My voice was flat, controlled. I'd like those forms destroyed. And I'd like to speak with whoever authorized accepting them. Of course. She made a note. Though I should mention, your mother is currently on hold with the dean's office. She called there when I told her I needed to verify the information before processing anything. That's when I heard it. Through the wall, muffled but distinct. My mother's voice rising in volume. The words weren't clear but the tone was demanding. Dialed. Used to getting her way. I stood. Where's the dean's office? Miss Shaw, perhaps we should. Please. Mrs. Henderson studied me for a long moment. Then she stood too. Follow me. We walked down the corridor. The dean's suite was behind double doors. Nicer carpet, better lighting, photos of distinguished alumni on the walls. The receptionist's desk sat empty, but through the open door of an inner office, I heard my mother clearly now. I don't care what your privacy policies are. I'm her mother. She's clearly having a breakdown and you people are enabling it by letting her waste her life on some engineering degree when her family needs her. The dean's assistant, a woman in her 50s with immaculate posture, held the phone slightly away from her ear. When she saw me in the doorway, her expression shifted, relief mixed with something else. Recognition maybe. She'd been at the building dedication ceremony. We'd shaken hands. She spoke into the phone, her voice professionally pleasant but with steel underneath. Ma'am, I need to stop you there. You're attempting to withdraw Catherine Shaw from the university. Yes, finally someone who... Miss Shaw is standing in front of me right now. The assistant's eyes met mine. She appears to be in excellent health. She's also our largest individual donor in the past decade. She personally endowed the Shaw Engineering Building, a $4.2 million gift from her grandmother's estate, which Ms. Shaw administered as trustee and specifically directed to this institution. The silence on the other end of the phone was absolute. The assistant continued, her tone never changing. Ms. Shaw has also established 3 full-ride engineering scholarships for first-generation college students, funds 2 research fellowships annually, and serves on our engineering advisory board. She graduated summa cum laude with her bachelor's degree and is currently pursuing her master's in mechanical engineering while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. I could hear my mother trying to speak, but the assistant wasn't finished. What you've attempted to do constitutes fraud, falsely claiming medical authority to make academic decisions for an adult student. I'm transferring you to our legal department now. They'll want to discuss the forged documents you submitted to our registrar. She pressed a button. The hold music started immediately, tinny, institutional. Then she hung up and looked at me. I apologize, Ms. Shaw. This should never have gotten this far. It's not your fault. My voice came out steadier than I expected. She's persistent. Mrs. Henderson, who'd followed me in, made a note on her tablet. I'll flag your account with the highest level of protection. No one can access or modify anything without your physical presence and photo ID. I'll also alert campus security to the situation. The assistant nodded. I'll brief Dean Morrison. She'll want to know about this. Thank you. I turned to leave, then stopped. Actually, could you give me the number for your legal department? I think I need to have a direct conversation with them about next steps. She wrote it on a card and handed it to me. Our fingers touched briefly. Hers were warm, grandmotherly almost. You've handled this with remarkable composure. I wasn't sure about that. My hands were shaking. But I'd learned something over the past 2 years since Grandma died and left me everything. Her estate, her trust in my judgment, her belief that I could do something meaningful with the gift she'd given me. Some people see money as control. Others see it as responsibility. Grandma saw it as freedom. The freedom to choose your own path. The freedom to say no. I walked back across campus. Called the legal department. Spent 40 minutes on the phone explaining the situation. They used words like identity fraud, and FERPA violation, and cease and desist letter. They said they'd handle it. That the university took these matters very seriously. Then I sat on a bench near the engineering building and finally let myself feel it. Not anger exactly. Something colder than that. Something that had been building for years. Every family dinner where Brandon's failed business ventures were bold risks, while my academic achievements were nice. But when are you getting a real job? Every time Mom borrowed money, just until Brandon's deal goes through, money that never came back. Every guilt trip about not being there for the family, as if proximity was the only measure of love. The ghost ledger of family expectations. A personal accounting. Line item 1. Thanksgiving 2 years ago. Brandon needed $15,000 for a sure-thing investment. I was in my senior year. Working part-time at the lab, managing Grandma's estate paperwork, studying for the GRE. Mom called it selfish when I said no. Cost. My confidence that saying no was allowed. Never recoverable. Line item 2. Summer internship at Boeing, turned down because family needs you home for Brandon's latest startup launch party. I served drinks while he pitched an app that never materialized. Cost. Professional opportunity, 3 months of advancement. Permanent career delay. Line item 3. Grandma's funeral. Brandon complained about the will in front of mourners. Mom said I should share the inheritance since Grandma didn't understand I'd wasted on education. Cost. The ability to grieve in peace. A memory contaminated forever. Line item 4. Every phone call that started with your brother needs and ended with my resources. Time, money, emotional labor, extracted like taxes. Cost. The years I spent believing that being capable meant being obligated. The years I thought love required depletion. The gambler's fallacy applies to families too. I kept thinking if I just proved myself enough, graduated with honors, got into the master's program, made smart decisions with Grandma's trust, they'd see me as something other than a resource to be mined. But they didn't want me to be successful. They wanted me to be useful. And those are different things entirely. My phone buzzed. Dad this time. I let it ring. Then Brandon. Then Mom again calling from a different number. I turned my phone off and sat there as the afternoon light shifted, golden and slanting through the trees. Students walked past, stressed about midterms, excited about weekend plans, living their complicated normal lives. I thought about Grandma. How she'd worked as an engineer in the 1960s when women in the field were rare enough to make the newspapers. How she'd saved and invested and built something real. How she'd sat me down when I was 17 and said, "Katie, I'm leaving this to you because I know you won't waste it. And I know you won't let anyone make you feel guilty for having it." She'd known. Of course she'd known. I turned my phone back on. 37 missed calls. 16 voicemails. 43 texts. I deleted them all without reading or listening. Then I opened my contacts and scrolled to Mom's number. Hit the block button. Dead. Block. Brandon. Block. Then I called the university's legal department back. "Hi, this is Catherine Shaw. We spoke earlier. I need to add something to my statement. I'd like to pursue full legal action against my mother for identity fraud, attempted unauthorized access to educational records, and any other applicable charges. I'll cooperate fully with the investigation." The attorney's voice was professionally neutral, but I heard the approval underneath. "We'll file with campus police immediately. They'll coordinate with local authorities. You should also consider a restraining order." "I will. Thank you." That evening I met with campus police. Made a formal statement. Signed documents. The officer, an older woman with kind eyes, said she'd seen this before. Parents who couldn't accept their adult children's autonomy. It happened more than people realized. "You're doing the right thing," she told me. "Boundaries aren't cruel. They're necessary." I nodded. Felt the truth of it settle into my bones. 3 days later I received an email from the dean. The university was pursuing criminal charges. My academic records were now sealed at the highest level, Fort Knox as Mrs. Henderson put it. And they wanted to discuss expanding my scholarship fund if I was interested. I was. 2 weeks after that, campus police served my mother with a no trespass order and formal charges for identity fraud and computer crimes. She'd accessed the student portal using old information and falsified medical documents. Dad called from a number I hadn't blocked yet, screaming about embarrassment and ingratitude. I hung up. Blocked that number too. Brandon sent a long email about family loyalty and how I was tearing everyone apart. He said Mom was devastated. That Dad wasn't sleeping. That I was selfish and cold and everything wrong with this generation. I didn't respond. But I did screenshot it and send it to my attorney. Documentation, she said, was important. 4 months later, I'm sitting in the Shaw Engineering Building's top-floor study lounge. It's midnight. Campus is quiet. Through the window I can see the lights of the city stretching out. Thousands of lives, each one a story I'll never know. My thesis defense is in 2 weeks. I've already accepted a position at Lockheed Martin starting after graduation. The scholarship fund I expanded now supports 8 students. First generation, just like Grandma was. Just like I am, really, in the ways that count. Mom's criminal trial is scheduled for next month. The prosecutor says it's a strong case. She created false documents, impersonated me, attempted to access protected records. Dad hired a lawyer to try to make it go away. The lawyer told him that's not how felonies work. I haven't spoken to any of them since that day in October. I blocked their numbers, their emails, their social media. I built a wall, not out of anger but out of architecture. Clean lines. Load-bearing. Permanent. Sometimes I think about the alternate version of my life. The one where I let Mom withdraw me. Where I went home, did Brandon's bookkeeping, made myself small and useful and disappeared into the service of people who confused love with extraction. That version of Catherine is a ghost. She haunts me sometimes, usually at 2 a.m. when I'm deep in research and questioning everything. But then I remember, ghosts aren't real. They're just stories we tell ourselves about roads not taken. I chose this road. I chose the one that hurt at first but led somewhere I wanted to go. Grandma used to say that engineering is about understanding load and stress, knowing what structures can bear and what breaks them. She meant buildings, but she also didn't. I've learned my load capacity. I know exactly how much I can carry and what happens when I exceed it. The relationship with my parents exceeded it. So I removed the load. The building is still standing. My phone sits face down on the desk, silent. The thermodynamics textbook is open to chapter 17. Outside, snow has started to fall, the first of the season, soft and quiet. They wanted to control my education, my future, my freedom. They thought the university would comply because parents always get their way, especially when they invoke mental health and family crisis. They forgot something important, though. I'm not the struggling student they imagined. I'm not the resource they decided I should be. I'm the person who wrote the check that built this building. I'm the engineer who's going to design systems that matter. I'm the granddaughter who honored a legacy by refusing to let anyone diminish it. The dean's assistant was right about one thing. I did handle it with composure. But what she didn't see, what they never see until it's too late, is that composure isn't passivity. It's precision. And I've learned from the best that precision applied correctly can move mountains. Or in this case, remove them entirely from your life. The scholarship fund will outlive me. The building will stand for decades. 8 students are getting educations they couldn't otherwise afford. Mom is facing felony charges and a permanent criminal record. The math is simple, really. You can't withdraw someone who's already arrived.